thank you all for being here. I guess I'll start with that. I guess I'll tell you a little bit about who I am. As Dave said, I did get my career started with VFS, GDO1 5 years ago, 6 years ago actually, I think. I worked at Backbone for a little while doing some mobile games. I went to Propaganda, did multiplayer design for Turok, and also some speech banks, that kind of thing. Moved on to the Pirates of the Caribbean game that they were doing there. Did the RPG design for that, helped out with the story. And then I left and went south to 343, thank you very much, where I started working on Halo Waypoint. Now, in terms of what I want to talk about with this presentation, I really want to talk about the principles of design behind what we're trying to do down there, and not really talk. Waypoint is really sort of the case study that I'm going to use to talk about this. The design principles are applicable to anything that you're trying to do that is going across multiple screens. And now that I've said that, I'm going to talk specifically about Waypoint. So just in case not everyone in here knows what Waypoint actually is, what Waypoint is it's sort of an aggregator of Halo content from around the web, around the community, around the fan sites, and also stuff that we've made for ourselves. So there's really kind of two spheres to it. It's the content that we've pulled together. We've got some great community sites out there, places like Ascendant Justice, Rooster Teeth, HBO, Halopedia. We kind of grab that stuff and user-generated content from the game, bring that together for people, and then we've also got the sort of the part of the site that is your career. So what have you done within the Halo universe? What are your achievements? What are your accomplishments? What reach armor have you unlocked? Things like that. So really it's just a home for the Halo community that we're building as a fan service. We've also got the web portal, and we've got the mobile device on Windows Phone 7, which is part of why I'm here. So a bit of the history of Halo Waypoint. So I wasn't around in the very beginning of this product. I joined just when we launched the initial console version. I came into play as the lead designer to kind of take this from just being a console thing and taking it into the web and mobile spaces as well. So when Waypoints first started to be kicked around as an idea at Microsoft, we knew that Halo's got a robust fan community. And we knew that we wanted to provide more service to that community. We want to make it easier for people to be Halo fans and to be hardcore fans. And around the same time that this idea was taking place of saying, well, what can we do for the fan community? We said, well, the dashboard is launching this next Xbox experience, the NXE, which is what you currently see on the dashboard when you boot up at 360. And so this idea kind of came up that, hey, what if we had a channel specifically for Halo? The idea was that you'd go through these different screens and you'd see okay, we can have different sections of this channel that people can go to, and we can pull together all the different Halo content out there. And you can really see from these early shots, these early pitch ideas from Waypoint, how it came into what it is today. So as that idea matured into Halo Waypoint, it's around the same time that across Microsoft in general, this whole 3 screens in a cloud idea was really taking place. The 3 screens in a cloud is, we really see it as being the next step in software. And I think that this pretty universal attitude. It's not just Microsoft. The idea is that information doesn't need to live on a hard drive. It needs to live on a server. It needs to live somewhere that you can access no matter where you are. And with Waypoint, we're saying, well, this is exactly what we need to be doing as well. We need to be available to people where they are, where it's convenient for them, not just with the console, which is our home. This is when I joined the project, is when we were saying, well, how do we expand out? How do we take care of these different screens? And we use the term 3 screens in a cloud. It's really not just 3 screens, because now you're seeing the tablet emerge as being something that is, becoming a very prevalent screen. And I'm sure that there's other things down the road that are going to pop up. And when we sat down and we said, okay, well, how do we take advantage of these different devices, and how do we create something that's, a product that's really going to have legs? We came across some key questions. Now, the way that I've always described designing anything for multiple screens is I describe it as different windows into the same room. Now that's sort of just a different way of describing 3 screens in a cloud, but for me it really sums up the idea clearly that it's a central thing that everyone is interacting with. They just have a little slightly different viewpoint on it. But you want to make sure that you're customizing the experience to that window that they're looking into the room with. And so these key questions are sort of intended to drive you towards getting an experience that makes sense across multiple screens. And so these are the questions that I'm going to kind of dive into. So what is the input? Where does the screen excel? What stories are we telling? And how do I establish familiarity? So let's start with what is the input. Big surprise, a game controller is different from a mobile device. I don't think I'm staggering anyone in the room with that comment. But it goes beyond that. It's not just about, well, my game controller has buttons and analog sticks. So that's what's different about it. It's not just that. It's about the different use paradigms that people have generated over years of playing games. What do people expect those buttons to do? What is the predicted behavior that they're going to have? If you hand a game controller to somebody who has never played an Xbox, they're going to handle that thing very differently than a person who's a gamer. And in particular, for us with Halo Waypoint, we know that Halo fans handle a controller in a specific way because of the way that we've trained them and taught them. So when we say, well, what is our console experience going to be for Waypoint? We say, well, what are the things that we've already taught them when they're playing a game like Halo Reach? Halo Reach has UGC in it. It's got a content browser. So what we have to do is we say, well, when somebody's browsing content within our app, we need to make sure that they're browsing it in the same way that they do within Halo Reach. It just makes sense. And so you need to look at that input as being not just the device, but also the way that people have been trained to use it. And that extends to the other screens as well. For a mobile device, people's interaction with their mobile device is very tactile, right? It's about touch. It's about multi-touch devices. It's also about hardware buttons. It's also about the restrictions that are put on you by the mobile device creator. So for us, we were on Windows Phone 7, and we were saying, well, there are certain things that they want the certain buttons to do, but there's also these decisions that they've made about the device in general. They've got the panorama sort of sorting view, and you have to say, well, anyone who owns this device is going to interact with it in a certain way, and we need to take advantage of that. If you were designing something for an iPhone, you would say, well, there's going to be different use demands for that. And so you don't want to go and say, well, this is our mobile plan. This is how we're going to design mobile devices, and then we're going to put it out on iPhone and Android and Windows Phone 7, and that's what we're doing, because you're going to fall short. You're not going to have the best app you possibly can if you're not customizing it to that specific experience. And you see this with anything that's gone from an iPhone to an iPad, where if it's just blown up, it's not as ideal as the experience that's customized specifically for that screen. Looking at the mouse and keyboard, this is kind of an interesting one to me because the mouse and keyboard is so incredibly versatile. You've got all the different digits that you can type in, and then you've got this incredibly accurate mouse. But you've also got this massive restriction in that everyone knows exactly how they expect to interact with a website. Everyone knows I should be able to scroll with the wheel and move up and down. I should be able to click on things, and my right click should do X, and my left click should do Y. And that's what people expect. So even though there's all these versatile ways that you can use the mouse and keyboard, you need to respect the way that people are expecting things to behave. And you need to always follow the rule of, if I am going to do it different, I have to do it better. And that's always the rule that you should be living by when thinking about inputs. So the next question that I always want to ask is, how does this screen excel? What are the things that I can do on this particular device or this screen that I can't do on the other screens? So let's talk about the console. When I sit down to use my console, I am using my leisure time. And that's something to be very cognizant of. People sit down on the couch and they're saying, I don't have anything else to do. I'm going to do this right now. Very different experience from the mobile device and PC or Apple or whatever you're using that third screen as. Because people are choosing to interact with this. They're sitting down, they're on the couch in front of the TV. It's also the best screen for multiple people interacting at the same time on that screen. It's also the screen where people play games. And it's also where people enjoy high quality content. So when you look at something like Waypoint, when we say, well, okay, well, what do we want to do with Waypoint on the console, we have to respect really two key things. One is that this is the screen where we should be showing the highest quality content. And two, this is also the screen where we need to respect that a Halo fan is probably sitting down here to play Halo. And as ridiculous as it sounds, we're not competing with Halo. We want people to be fans of that. So the Waypoint experience should really be saying, well, how do I supplement that? How do I make sure that Waypoint is the first place they go to when they want to play Halo before they play, and that Waypoint is the place that they go immediately after. And those are kind of goals that you want to set for yourself for those different screens. Now the mobile device is different. It's got people have a very different relationship with their mobile phones. People customarily love their phones. People are very passionate about their phones. People will defend to their dying breath, my iPhone is better than your Android, right? And it's kind of, and I think it's because of the ubiquity of the mobile phone. It's replaced so many things in our lives. You know, who looks at a map anymore, right? You know, there's just so many things that you do with a mobile phone now that you used 5 different devices before to use. And when people use their mobile phones, yes, they use it when they're commuting. That's, just sort of an accepted given. People use it for convenience, even when they shouldn't. They really should not be accessing their mobile device when they're driving their car. People also use it to reach out and connect with people. And one of the key things about this image that I really want to pound into people's heads is she's using her phone inside. She's not moving from point A to point B. It's not just about being a mobile device, it's about being a convenient device. I can't remember the exact number, so don't quote me on this, but I've seen around 60% of mobile phone use is indoors, not in movement. It's when people are in meetings using their device. It's when people are at home using their device because somebody is using one of the other screens that they might otherwise have done this on. I mean, I don't know if any of you like to cook, but I'm sure that you've gone to the store with a recipe, bought the goods, and then made whatever you're making off of the recipe on your mobile device. Because that's how people use their phones now. And it's so easy for us to slip into this idea of thinking of a mobile device as being point A to point B. This is all about when I'm commuting to and from work. And if you just focus on that experience, you're going to fall short. You need to say, how does this screen supplement the other devices? How does the screen supplement the other experiences? It's an extra screen that somebody can access at any time, anywhere. And it's important to view it in that way. One more thing with the mobile devices, people are starting to view content a lot more on their mobile devices. People have accepted that, you know what, there's a lower degree of fidelity that I will accept on my mobile device because I know that it's a small screen. I know that that's something that is just a given with that device. But at the same time, you want to make sure that the content you're delivering to people makes sense on that device. So somebody will watch 30 Rock on their phone while on the bus because the nature of that content doesn't lose a whole lot when they're traveling. But they're not going to watch the latest action flick du jour because it just loses so much. For the same reason somebody wants to see an action movie in theater instead of at home on their TV, well, that's just magnified when you go from the television to the mobile device. The PC, the personal computer, the web, I mean, this is something that we spend so much time around, right? We're always around our computers, whether you're a game designer like me, whether you're an office worker, even if you don't have a job that uses computers on a regular basis, you probably have one at home and you probably contact it all the time. The ubiquity of the computer within our lives is a big part of how the screen excels. It's always available. What is the secret sauce for Facebook? It's that you go there all the time. That's where their power is. And it's not just that you go there all the time, it's that it's always changing and it's always about you. I mean, I go to ESPN constantly throughout the day because it's always changing and because I'm a big sports nut. But I'll tell you, if the content was about me, I'd go there even more often. And that's what Facebook is. It's also about this. There is so much information on that screen right now. Like, I dare you to get that much information on a mobile device or a television set with anywhere near the ease of moving through that. For those of you who aren't familiar with Bing, and you should be, I work for Microsoft, come on. Like, you can just see, like, I can mouse over these things and it pops out whatever piece of content I'm looking at right now, and I can just parse through so much information all at one time. And that's the beauty of the computer, of the web, of being able to move through massive quantities of information and get what you want in a heartbeat. And to me, that's where this screen really excels. And then what stories are we telling? So what do I mean by stories? So what this is this is a tool to help us determine what is the use experience actually going to be when using our app. You can use user research, and I encourage you to. It tells you a lot about your audience, and often it will tell you where you're wrong about assumptions you've made with your audience. But don't rely on it. I mean, ultimately, when you're doing design, you're being paid to know more than the person off the street. If the best that you can do is what your user research tells you, then you're falling far short of your potential. So when I say a story, a user story, for instance, would be, okay, so Bob, let's say. Bob is a big Halo fan. He plays about 12 hours a week. He mostly plays multiplayer. He's at work. He gets a message from a buddy who says, hey, you should check out the fails of the week. It's really awesome. He's like, cool, I'm just about to head home from work. On the bus on the way home, pulls out Halo Waypoint, brings up the fails of the week. That's awesome. Messages back his friend. That was great. Friend's like, hey, we're playing Halo. We're in Slayer right now. Are you going to be home soon? We need a fourth. Yeah, I'm in. He comes home, fires up his Xbox, into the game. That's a user story. User stories are aspirational. They're supposed to tell you something about where we want to be with the product we're building, and they allow you to determine whether or not you're reaching those benchmarks. It's also very good for when you're pitching upwards within a company. You want to be able to take these user stories and tell the guy who's going to give you the money, look, this is what the experience will be like. This is what you're going to be able to do down the road. So some key points about these stories, about what, these are some questions that I like to ask when I make out these stories. Who am I building it for? What is the person that's actually going to use this? I like to use the Bartlett classifications. Different gamers are of different types, so killers, socializers, explorers, achievers. I like to make sure that my stories touch on those different kinds of gamers to make sure there's something for everyone. It's not compartmentalizing people. It's just making sure. It's just a tool to help you make sure that you're ticking all the boxes with the different kinds of people who enjoy your game. How do people use your product? What is the exact way that they are interacting with it? What's the scenario for different screens? Making sure that your story touches on the different screens. And this is a really big one, is how do your screens interact? You want to make sure that, I view multi-screen design as being very similar to transmedia storytelling in a way. In order to properly do a transmedia storytelling franchise, you need to make sure that every piece of story that you're telling stands on its own, but it's also got to be able to interact with the other stories in such a way that, and I hate to use this word, it's a synergistic relationship, where you get more than the sum of its parts by interacting with the different pieces of that story. And with the screens, it's the same thing. You need to make sure that, look, I can have a great interaction with Waypoint on my mobile phone. I can have a great interaction with it on the console. I can have a great interaction with my PC. But if I'm using them in concert, I get more. I get a better experience across the entire board. How do I establish familiarity? So this was actually a struggle that we encountered in doing Waypoint. You want to make sure that no matter where people interact with your device, they feel like they're in the same conceptual space. That it feels like home. It's got something that always pulls them in. They always know exactly what to expect. Call it branding, call it what you will. It's a very important part of doing multi-screen design. This was the original Halo Waypoint. This is what it looked like when I first joined the team. Myself and the art director joined at the same time. We had some concerns about the way that this looks. To our thinking, we felt like it was the layers were too harsh, that it feels kind of closed in. And when you actually interact with it, when you move through from screen to screen, it feels very much like you're moving from one compartment to another compartment. And just in terms of how we wanted people to view the app, that wasn't really ticking some of the boxes that we wanted it to. You see this these are the other screens. This is the Intel screen. You see how everything is very closed in. So when we moved on to the web design portion, we said, well, okay, let's change some things. For one thing, we updated the Halo logo because Reach was using a different logo than Halo 3. The web. When we got to the web, we decided that we were going to, make it more about an expanding space, make it more about bringing the content to the player instead of letting the player browse to the content. And you kind of see this with some of the decisions that we made in both the web and the mobile. And what this created was a disconnect with the console version, where this doesn't match that. So we changed it. These are purely art changes that we did, but they make it feel like the same place. And that's really important. So people who enjoy Waypoint through their console feel like the web and the mobile device are the same thing. And you can just see, I mean, these are really cosmetic changes, but they're really important for branding the product and moving forward. And you can just see how those match much, this is much more like this and this. So those are just some very simple ideas about how to make sure that you branded an experience and made sure that it matches up with everything. So those are the 4 key questions. I mean, I've been to a lot of talks and stuff at GDC and places like that. I find personally that the ones that I enjoy the most are the ones where it's very much like, here are the key points for you to take away. And so that's kind of what I tried to do is like just give you some key notes about how to do 3 screens design. I think that if you follow these, you'll do pretty well for yourself. But more than anything, you just need to make sure that you're keeping the user in mind. It's always about the player. And it's really easy to kind of think about the what it is you're trying to do instead of the why you're trying to do it. And that's an idea that I completely stole from somebody I heard at a TED conference. But the why, what, how theory of design, go look it up, go online and look at, I think it's called startwithwhy.com. And that'll be the best design 20 minutes that you spend this year, I guarantee you. Because a lot of these ideas sort of stem from that, with the why are we making this product? We're making it for the user. Why are we trying to do this? Not what are we trying to do and how are we trying to do it? So that's my email. If any of you have any questions that you want to ask me about any of this stuff, it's also my Twitter that I rarely do, and it's probably going to be about sports, but every now and then I do talk about games. And I'm going to open the floor to questions if anyone has any questions for me.
How do you go about bringing in the people to this community who wouldn't have normally considered themselves a part of it? Someone who's maybe just getting into that game, enjoys it. Like, in what aspect of design are you able to bring those people in to make them a continuing loyal customer who's part of that?
So I think if you want to start bringing in people who aren't necessarily your core, I would start with those user stories of starting to say, well, okay, what are the things about my franchise that are engaging to those people? And so I think within Halo we have a perfect example of this, where Halo has an incredibly rich story background to it. If you just played the games, you don't know it. But there's some great novels that have been written. There's great comics, and we've got a very robust background story that I think if more people knew about, they'd be more interested in Halo, but we need to deliver that to them. And so when you want to start bringing those people in, you need to start identifying the places where you've fallen short and where you're not addressing those people, and you need to be ruthless about it. It's very easy for us to say, no, we're great, we know what we're doing, everyone will come to us in the long run, but you need to say, where are we falling short? And what are the stories that we can create that will get those people in there? And I really want to pound home that the user stories need to be aspirational. They need to be about where you want to be, not about where you are right now or what you think you can accomplish in this next sprint or whatever that you're working on. I can't share with you the stories about what we want to do with Waypoint, because that would be telling you what we're doing right now. And you need to look down the road and you need to say, okay, if we're as successful as we can possibly be, what does that mean for the people that are using our program or our app or our product?
There's been a lot of comparisons between mobile and web, and I wanted to kind of talk about the tablet scene and how that kind of compares with web versus mobile. And then twofold, also with Waypoint, are you guys also looking, and how far are you guys pushing into the social space as well, whether it be Twitter, whether it be Facebook, or other social locations?
So on the tablet front, I mean, tablet's this interesting place that's emerging where, I think that a lot of us, when like the iPad first came out, there was kind of two camps. There was this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It'll go perfectly well with all the other Apple products I have in my home. And then there was well, I don't really know what this thing is or what sphere it fits into. But I mean, the questions have been answered. Like, obviously, the iPad is a success, and it's working right now. And why is it working? It's working because it replaces your the web browsing experience, but it also has that tactile portion of the mobile experience. And I think that bridge that it has is really where its success lies. I mean, one thing also is it boots up immediately, which, if you just want to, like, how many times have you powered down your laptop and been like, crap, I just needed to do one thing, and then you've got to wait while you boot up your laptop again? Well, something like the iPad, you can get into it, you can do it quickly, without the sort of hassle of using a small screen device like your mobile. But it also has that intimate relationship that you have in any touchscreen device that you don't get with a computer. As for your second question about the sort of the social aspect of things, we have a great team on Waypoint that is our content team that they not only sort of aggregate all the content from around the community, but they also generate a lot of great stuff themselves. Sort of like some of the motion comics and things like that you'll see up on Waypoint are their babies, their product. But they also are engaged. Like, we have a Twitter feed, we have things like that. In terms of like long-term social, I mean, everyone is looking at social and saying, well, what is next? Where is this going to go? And so obviously we have opinions about where we think social is going to go and what the potential long-term impact of social is. But obviously that's not something I can talk in too much detail about.
So when you're building the content for Halo Waypoint, what kind of content did you find worked for your community and which didn't? Like, when you're putting stuff in, what did you find was really a hit immediately, and what did you think was kind of a miss?
Well, that's actually a pretty easy question to answer because we started on the console. And when we first launched, we were like, okay, great, we're going to have text articles, we're going to have screenshot galleries, we're going to have videos, and we're going to make this work. And like the things that I was saying about, well, what does the screen do well? Well, video did really, really well because it's something that's really easy for people to see. And you're sitting there, you're on the couch, you're looking at a television set. I mean, video just makes sense. People don't want to read a ton of text on their TV. So that's really what we found worked. And we also found that people were really engaged with anything that utilized user-generated content. So things like our top fives worked really well. And also things that encourage people to play the game in a different way. One of the really talented guys on our content team came up with this whole a different way to play idea, which was going through different Halo levels and so places where, let's say, you'd normally drive through on a warthog, and then saying, well, what if you don't use the warthog? What if you just go through on foot, and what do you see, and what did you miss by going through this on a warthog? People really enjoyed that kind of content. Now that we've branched out and we've got a website and we've got a mobile device, we're starting to see somewhat different interaction mechanics because something like a website is easier for you to read text on. Reading 400 words of text on a website is no problem. Putting 400 words of text onto a television set is very difficult, especially when you factor in standard def versus high def. Like, we always want everyone to have a high def television, but it's just not the case. I mean, the numbers aren't borne out. And so it really affects what you can do on those different screens. But that's really what we've seen is sort of where people are moving. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone.